welcome to my channel. I hope you're fine, I hope you're great, and I hope this video finds you well. Yeah. Feels like I wear this pulley on all my videos. Anyway, yeah, I always feel so cold at home, but it doesn't matter. I think you also don't care, right? Yeah. So welcome to another episode of It's Rosebud. I've gotten a few comments and questions from you people concerning Kenya before the British, or better said, the Kenya before the colonial times. And this is because the colonial times has had such a huge impact on Kenya that it's almost impossible to say what Kenya was. Was there even a Kenya? How did the people live? What did they wear? What did they cook? What did they eat? Did they cook? What did they do all day? What was their career those days? How was the governance? Was there any? And I want to look at 10 aspects, the categories that I decided myself were important in order to give you people a better insight, a better view on how Kenyans were, how Kenya was before the Mzungu came, before the white man came. And if you want to find out, please stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get straight to it. So, alright, a short recap for those of you out there who have no idea what exactly I'm talking about. The British Empire colonized Kenya in 1895, and there they established the so-called East African Protectorate, which ended up became the Kenya colony in 1920. The British came to Kenya. They took over the most fertile lands, they took over the most productive areas, and left the other not good for anyone areas for the natives to live there. And due to these inequalities, there arose, like you can imagine, a lot of racial disputes. There was a lot of racial hostilities, and also there was generation of new legislations. And at the end of the day, the British ended up breaking the East African area into borders, and there ended up being a country called Kenya. If you want to find out more about the colonialism, any advantages if there were any disadvantages if there were any, I will leave for you some videos that I made in the past. You can just click there and check them out, okay? Alright, so in today's video, I just wanted to take you back to the time before the British came. That time when Kenya was Kenya, and not a mixture of the British Empire, the Indians and the Arabs. It was just Kenya. The thing is, back in the days, there was no Kenya, because like I mentioned, the British are the ones who ended up making these borders in order for them to secure their territory, in order for them to divide this marvelous piece of land among the other white people. So yeah, there was no Kenya as such. What Kenya was just many different ethnic groups. So Kenya is a multi-ethnic regime, I would say. So there were just different ethnic groups living peacefully on their own, okay? And I want to go back to those ethnic groups. I will use today Merus as an example because that's where I come from. I'm not so much familiar with other ethnic groups, and I have divided this video into 10 categories. And the first category will be food. Before the introduction of spaghetti and rice and maize and all those exported goods that we have in Kenya today, which are almost like the staple, you ask any Kenyan and they will say, we eat rice, rice is our food. We eat maize, maize is our food. No, Those were the foods which were introduced to Kenya by the white people. But we Africans, we Kenyans, had our food before the white people came. And what we see is that in every tribe, because Kenya was mostly divided into their tribes, and each tribe has their specific distinct language. They have even their distinct characteristics, distinct traditions, distinct beliefs, and there was not much of an interaction between the ethnic groups, because in most cases they could not understand each other. So having said that, in Kenya we had different ethnic groups living at different areas in Kenya. We can imagine that in every ethnic group they had their specific types of food that they ate there, and this was determined by what kind of area it was. Let's take, for example, the Merus. We live near Mount Kenya. These are very fertile lands. Those are the places that they grow tea and pyrethrum and a lot of staple foods like potatoes and maize and all that kind of so very fertile soils, very fertile soils. So you can imagine those people lived on agriculture, they lived on gardening, they lived on farming, they just had their crops. That was their life, and what they ate is what they produced. And when we look at, for example, the Luos, they lived near Lake Victoria, so their staple food was based on what they got from the lake, which was fish. So all they did was eat fish. When you look at other people like the Nilotes, they were mostly having so many cattle. So what they mostly ate was milk and meat. So when we look at the food in Kenya before the European, it was completely different depending on which kind of ethnic group you meet. As for the Merus, our diet was mostly based on grains and roots. We had so many grains and so many roots, arrowroots, cassava, yams, so many. And then we had so many cereals, so many seeds like millet and sorghum and so many others which I have no idea what they are called in English. But this was our main food. So yeah, that was the kind of food we Africans ate before the British came. There was nothing processed. It was everything that the way you get it from the nature, this is the way it entered in your stomach. So the second thing would be the clothing. How did we Kenyans dress before the European came to Kenya? We did not have such woolen stuff. We did not have like the cotton. We did not have the silk like the Indians had. No, but we had our kind of dressing. One thing we must say is that, however, nakedness was not a thing for us. We did not see it as sin. We did not find it as immoral. We did not consider it as sexual in any way. And I'm talking for all tribes. Nevertheless, every tribe had their way of dressing up differently. With the Merus, for example, our private areas had to be covered. If you are male or female, it did not matter. For the female, it was mostly the lower part if they were just very young girls, and as soon as they start showing some signs of puberty, and I mean some growing up of boobs, they would also get something to cover their breast. So when we look at the Meru traditions, the women had these sisal skirts which covered the lower part, and they had a piece of leather which covered their breast. And I think that's sexy, isn't it? Oh, we did not have shoes. No one did. We did not need them. What for? Kenya is hot from January to January. No one is freezing anywhere. So it doesn't matter if we are wearing shoes or not. I mean, the introduction of clothes in Europe is understandable. If you don't put on anything, you are going to freeze your ass off. In Kenya, who needs that? No one. We had our size skirt and we had our breast holder. That was enough. The fact that the European came and talked us or brainwashed us into showing skin is a sin, and how can you go out looking like that? It's disrespectful. To who? It was not disrespecting anyone before you arrived. How come now all of a sudden it's going to disrespect anybody? It's just such a pity. And we Kenyans got so much dug into that if we ever see anyone showing a knee, we are already, oh God, he's going to hell. Such a sin that you're showing your knee. I'm like, what happened to the Kenyan openness? I remember there was this time I went to Kenya, I think it was 2010, and I just walked to the city wearing my dress, which was reaching the knee, I remember. And people were looking. I think there were also some insults coming towards me. Why are you walking around naked? Are you a prostitute? And I was like, seriously? I was wearing a dress reaching the knees. And believe me, it was so bad. I had to go when I reached the city, direct to a shop, bought myself some jeans and worn them, because I could not walk in that dress the whole day. I would not have survived. And I always wonder why did we get so much brainwashed? Who is it bothering the way I dress? Why is it a problem for anybody the way I dress? I don't know. It's a difficult topic to argue because so many Kenyans will not understand why you dress showing a shoulder like that. Why? That's devilly. That's against God's will. Why? I don't get the whole concept. I don't know. Maybe someone should explain to me again, because I don't get it. Every tribe in Kenya dressed differently. If you went to the Maasai, they had their clothes. If you went to the Kambas, they also looked almost like the Merus, only their skirts were made of a different kind of material. So every part of Kenya, every tribe in Kenya had their way of dressing. And up to date, we have some traditional dances, like in schools we have like competitions, and people have like the Meru dance, so they dress like the Merus used to dress. They have like the Kisii dance, they dress like the Kisiis used to dress, and it was like, it's so beautiful when you look at it, and it's so open. That's when you see when a Kenyan is dressed, for example, to have those dances, you will not hear anybody say anything. But if they just removed their traditional clothes and put on the European, but a little bit open, then you'll be like, why is she dressing like that? So the third one will be housing. This is an easy one, because before the European came to Kenya, Kenyans had their own way of building their houses. And like I said, every tribe had their own way of life. And this can be seen through all aspects of life. And also for the housing. The Merus, for example, we have these typical African huts. It was made of grass roofs and made of dung walls. And the building of houses was usually, the building of the walls was usually done by the women, and the roofing was always done by the men. And this was just typical for everybody. So usually we would have like different huts in one homestead where maybe the grandmother lives there and the mother lives there, and they all live in one homestead. And when you hear of African houses, you think those African huts. So yeah, we Merus had those, many of them. It was like, yeah. So you have the small little door, a small little window, and a big homestead where all children could come and sing and play. Yeah, beautiful. The fourth thing would be the governance and punishment. I put this together because they kind of go hand in hand. Most of the people tend to think that Africans, I will talk of Kenyans, did not have any kind of leadership before the British came, which is so wrong. The Kenyans, for example, the governance was also ethnically divided. There was not joint governance. Why? Why should it be? Why should it be in the first place? These people had nothing to do with each other. They did not even speak the same language. No. So every ethnic group had their own governance. The Meru, for example, we had the so-called Council of Elders. These were elderly men, usually men, who were chosen by the Meru. And I think when I say Meru as an ethnic group, most of you might not really exactly know the size of this group. It would be something like Bavaria when we look at the size of the Meru, because it goes all the way from Imenti to Tigania, it goes all the way to Chogoria, to Tharaka. This is all Meru, and there's a whole huge piece of land, group of people, big like Bavaria, was governed by a council of elders. And this council of elders would come together in their own given frequencies and discuss matters concerning the tribe. For example, they would discuss land distribution. They would settle disputes between neighbors. They would call out punishment for something someone did. So if someone, for example, hurt your child, you would come to the council of elders and you would present your case. You would be, my child was hurt by so and so, and then the council will sit down and decide what kind of punishment is fit for that kind of crime, and that's the punishment that would be offered to the person who did some crime. So yeah, the governance before the British came was, yeah, it was more human, because it was more in a personal way. You as a person, as an individual, you would go and present your case personally to the people who were making the judgment, and then you would immediately get an answer for whichever kind of dispute you had, for whichever kind of problem you had. Yeah, so the governance was there. It was just ethnically controlled. It was ethnically managed. The fifth thing that I wanted to talk about would be medicine and healthcare. And most of the time when we hear of medicine in Africa, we end up thinking voodoo, some human teeth and dog's car and whatever, and then some voodoo lady, voodoo guy will do some pocus, and then you're healed. No. No, actually the best known medicine in Kenya those days was the phytopharmaca. It was the use of herbs and all kinds of plants to cure disease. And there were people specialized for that, so they would study from already established medicine men, and they would learn what kind of plant, what part of the plant, how to extract the medicine from the plant, how it should be taken, how often, like the doses, how, for what ages it's appropriate, for what kind of disease it is. And they learn these things for years and years before they can take over the medicine man duty and start curing disease.